Welcome back, Umbrella Heads, to
What to watch now?
where we talk about what's streaming on Netflix right now. And I gotta tell you, I don't know if the Umbrella Academy already has a fandom name, but to me, we are the Umbrella Heads. And I'm proud to be a part of this fandom. It's so fun. Before we get started, I just wanted to say that if you can hear any bird chattering, I cannot do anything about the 300 birds all having a conversation with themselves right now outside my house. If it's not the fucking train or constant airplanes going overhead, which I try to pause and edit them out as much as possible. My God. Well, anyways, doing the best I can here. So I hope this is you're appreciating and enjoying this. Anyway, now this episode is something a little bit different. I got this as a request, which is another reason why you should go follow the podcast's Twitter. I love to talk to you guys, and I'm always down to take a request. Basically, someone was like, hey, can you talk about the Umbrella Academy Season 2, what you think is going to happen? And there's so much there. It's that great of a series. I'm happy to. So this is all about the Umbrella Academy Season 2's predictions and theories. Now, before I go into this, I just want to let you guys know I'm doing this without any knowledge of the comics. Because I made the dumb mistake. I like to do research before I go into watching something, and I accidentally spoiled for myself the main antagonist, the big twist that Vanya gets powers, and honestly, while I still completely enjoyed the series, that's another reason why you should go check it out. I did a whole podcast breaking down Season 1. You should totally go check that out. While I still had a good time, that would have been cool if I didn't know. Also, how many YouTube videos probably exist at this point that go into, breaking down what's, the possible future arcs and stuff like that? I mean, I don't know, isn't there some sort of fun wondering if it could be different? And last but not least, this is a bit of a selfish note. I'd like to pretend that by putting out these theories and predictions into the universe, maybe the producer or executive will hear this podcast and turn some of these ideas, make them real. Because I love the idea of them. I hope they happen. Guys, I'm giving you permission. You can use these ideas. I will not go after you for stealing this creative idea. Please, I love these ideas and theories. Now, moving forward, I appropriately have 7, just like the children. 1, Ben comes back alive, no longer ghost form, when they travel to the future. If you don't remember, which you really should, at the end of Season 1, everybody gets transported into the future. We see Ben with his hand on Klaus, but the only time we ever saw Ben was through, Klaus's perspective. No one else could see him. But that panning shot isn't from Klaus's perspective. It's kind of a narrator or an audience perspective. So does that mean that Ben comes back alive? I mean, think about it. It's possible. Time's kind of weird and functions unusually. We kind of get a bit of an idea that when Klaus traveled to time, Ben might not have been with him. As a ghost, he couldn't time travel with him. Ben's only a ghost right now, not during Vietnam War where Klaus went, which is why it was hard for Klaus to initially connect to his ghost, his ex-boyfriend, which makes sense why he could later see him, because Klaus's ex-boyfriend Dave would still be existing into the future. You know what I mean? He existed in the 60s, which then carried forward into 2019. The other thing about it is, maybe with Klaus's new ability to make Ben tangible and able to use his powers, mixed with number 5's abilities and meddling, that brings Ben into the future alive. On the other hand, though, by the way, I just thought, wouldn't that be really cool if they figured out how to use their powers with one another and create bigger things happening? Oh, I should have included that as a theory. That's another theory. But another idea I have along that scope is Ben being controlled in existence by Klaus, and it kind of causes for some fun, moody bickering. I love when they use their superpowers in a way that involves like casual family discussions. Like when number 5 is fighting with Luther and he's just bouncing around the kitchen through time rips. I like the idea of maybe Ben being able to talk to the others and existing through Klaus's ability, but when Klaus gets mad, he kind of just turns Ben off and makes it him unable to talk to the others, kind of like out of a petty anger. And in addition to that, Ben being alive and being able to communicate with the others would be pivotal. Remember, these kids are messed up, but they're messed up for a very variety of reasons. And I would say some of the big ones that kind of made them not give a shit anymore about the team or each other was number 5 disappearing and Ben dying, which I'm assuming they witnessed, and they keep saying it's really terrible. We don't know quite what he died from. Considering he is able to open his stomach to another dimension where there's monsters that can, kill and thrash around people, he could have been attacked by the very monsters coming out of him. I mean, who knows? Or maybe just a terrible violent attack from when they were trying to stop another bank heist or something. So Ben could be someone who both has seen them privately as a ghost, even though he's been connected at the hip by Klaus. He still, because Klaus has been around the other guys, maybe Ben was able to wander off and see what they were like as adults in private and know what they're going through, the things that they're not telling one another. But at the same time, he's able to be like, I know what you were like before all this. He could be a nice kind of closure setting. We could get a lot of great discussions. He seems like a generally kind, empathetic person as is, but he has a special insight. I mean, can you imagine if the very thing that defined you, and for a lot of people it does, the death of a loved one, imagine if all the reason why you have trouble in school or connecting to others just comes back and is able to then, like, you finally get this person you love back. I mean, that would really help with the healing and trying to understand and overcome your new problems you've developed. So that by itself is really interesting, and I love seeing him be a part of them because he is both the cause of their problems and he's secretly seen the effect of it, is the best way to sum it up. Now, theory number 2. When they go to the future, which, by the way, this confused me. Why were they all in their old school uniforms? We know number 5 was in his school uniform because that's all he had that he fit in. But, oh wait, no. Oh, no. I take back what I said. I rewatched the ending just to make sure I was clear. No, they weren't in their school uniforms. Or no. No, they were in their school uniforms, I think. Okay, I can't remember. This isn't really important to the theory. Basically, when they went through time, and they were about to jump through time during the situation of the apocalypse, they were all turned into child versions of themselves. So it begs the question, like, are they going to be children versions of themselves in the future? Is that what always happens? Like, because the time power is like, works through both number 5's ability and in addition to number 5's ability, his like intelligence and mathematical equations. So I could see him messing it up again and making everyone 13. That totally makes sense. But I don't think realistically they are going to stay that age because no offense, but the kid actors were not great. And we come to love the grown-up versions of them. So it makes sense that the others might return very quickly to being adults. But I don't see number 5 going back to being 58 or even a 20-year-old version of himself because the actor who plays him, Aidan, I think it's Aidan Gallagher, who was like fucking amazing. Holy shit. Like the nuances of him playing between a 13-year-old and the body of a 13-year-old with the mind of a 58 was like flawless. Like he really, in scenes where he has to be the younger version of himself, you can see his doubt and what he's going through. Like he feels like a kid. But then when he's playing this part of himself that's a little more cynical, he's seen things, I mean, that's the type of look that's hard to mimic or fake, and obviously as an actor, he's quite skilled at that. Anyways, they're not going to want to lose number 13, so then it begs the question of, well, why would he stay 13? Now, overall, I kind of have a fun theory. I'm going to read some of my notes so it comes out correctly. I said, are they all stuck as children versions of themselves in the future? Does this regression physically, but with a more intelligent mindset similar to number 5, like we just talked about, represent a metaphor for growth. And I think for sure it does. But I would say, I went further and said, does solving the timeline, because remember the big thing is they want to take Vanya with them and fix her and fix the timeline. Does the timeline fix rest less on quantum physics and more about emotional maturity at the right times in history? Think about it. They're going to now have the insight they have as adults with not only the future, but a better understanding of their powers, the consequences, lots of things, and at a much younger age. That could really, think about how number 5 finally was progressing things within his own situation. It was only when he went back into the kid's body. It's like a metaphor. Like I said, it's both a metaphor, but it could be actually like a literal interpretation. What else did I write? Other actors will return, but also... I said other actors will return as adults, but number 5 will still be a kid. But also some deep connecting reason or some fuck up on his end. And I'm wondering if when number 5 does stay a kid, which I'm sure he will, is that because it's important for some reason with the timeline? Like, what we've learned with the commission and the way things work is everything and everybody's way they live their life and how they affect each other, the butterfly effect, is pivotal. Maybe he needs to be a 13-year-old to get certain things done that will then affect something else. I even wonder, this is a bit of a theory within a theory, I wonder if they all need to have something happen to them to then affect the next thing. So he needs to be the mind of a 58-year-old. He needs to have gone through the apocalypse, everything he's experienced, and intelligence. Even as a hitman, it made him a better fighter, more intelligent. He knows how the commission works, all that jazz. Mixed with being 13. Maybe someone needs to see him as a 13-year-old for him to get close to someone that's pivotal. And then maybe them going to the future will help them find some special item or find a certain part of themselves. Like, maybe it's all leading up to this journey where they all need to be something. Like, Vanya herself needed to experience and cause the apocalypse. It's only after having caused it will she have a better, she'll truly want to get over her own personal shit no matter the consequences because of knowing what she's caused and then feeling guilt for it and wanting to obviously fix her powers and her feelings and herself. Number 3, the monocle of the dad will be found. Now, along with spoiling some things for myself, I learned that the monocle the dad always wears actually has a purpose. It's not just a fashion statement, but it's in fact a highly advanced technological design. It enables him, and I could be getting this wrong, again, I don't quite remember what it said, but it was something along the lines of, it can make him see anything. In fact, at one point, I think it's number 5 who tries to put on the monocle, and he ends up, blacking out or something. It gives him, an intense headache, because it's just too much stuff for even the regular, person to fathom or take in. I'm thinking because they're in the future, and we don't know how far they're going to be going into the future, either just a couple seconds after the apocalypse happened, or maybe it could take, they go many decades, maybe even 100 years. It's possible the ocean might change, or maybe by now the monocle has been washed up and they'll come across it. I think it will be kind of like a freak accident. I mean, then again, the commission might get their hands on the monocle, but I don't know why they would care about this monocle, considering their technology is on another level of advanced. I mean, they are aware of other species, creatures, planets, timelines, everything. The commission isn't strictly focused on the world, like the Earth. Or are they? I don't know, we don't really have that quite answered yet. Number 4. How will they fix Vanya? Because the thing is, it's so complicated. I mean, for sure, she was once very destructive. We learned through her killing nannies, she wasn't the kindest person for a small time as a kid. But between her powers being so uncontrollably powerful, by the way, really appreciated the fact that her powers being so uncontrollable and crazy powerful made sense. Like, a lot of the times when they make someone overpowered, they're like, she just is. And you're like, yeah, but why? Hers makes sense. If she's able to zero in on vibrations and amplify them, every time she is, amplifying them, it's creating a larger radius of more vibrations, which then she can amplify then. And it just goes and goes and goes. You can see how she could become such a powerhouse and force. Anyways, but the other problem is just the fact that all her siblings were by the dad's fault. I said this before in the previous podcast about the Umbrella Academy. Like, my God, I understand you were trying to make her think she was not ordinary for everyone's safety, but, like, did you have to, like, be such an asshole to her? You could have just included her somewhat, and I think it would have turned out a lot differently, and the kids wouldn't have been so brainwashed to kind of push her aside and create such a competition between the two, between all of them. I mean, that was really the dad's fault. But anyways, going back to that, do you think it will be a combination of just, like, love and support mixed with actual training of her abilities now that she has them? Like, I'm sure she'd be down for learning, because with her background and all the shit they've been through, she's officially, she would basically be like, yeah, don't want the apocalypse ×2. I'm not trying to turn this rubble into crumbs. But I see a lot of hiccups already coming along the way, because it's going to be really hard for them to overcome their preconceived notion of seeing her as useless or ordinary, even though they know she's not anymore. In fact, it could flip. They could see her as dangerous and be afraid of her, and it makes the dynamic even worse. Either way, I see a really huge problem between her and Luther. Because think about it. None of this shit would have happened if it was for Luther. I am so sorry about that. I had to stop the podcast. I feel like the witch from Snow White, because I literally just went outside and was like, shut up to all the birds. It didn't really help. You can still fucking hear them. It's driving me fucking crazy, as much as I naturally, like, normally I like hearing the birds. But, yeah. Anyways, going back to what we were talking about. Luther was the idiot who decided to lock her up, wanted to take her down by force, and all the while, her sister Allison was like, I was the one who caused this from when we were kids and forcing her to think she was ordinary and suppress herself. I fucked up many times, pardon me, and, what's the word? Like, when you reinstate, like, an idea over and over again as adults. All her peers wanted to be there and help her. I loved what Klaus said, how scared she must be with these new powers. Everyone else was still down with her and didn't see her as a threat, even if she was threatening. I don't think they didn't get that. I think they just were like, we need to be there for her. And that would have been the most appropriate way to even forge a deep connection between all of them. Because as much as they could disrespect her at times, they never hesitated to give a shit about her well-being or with being with a crappy person that wanted to control her. Because they did love her. She was a sister to them, even when they thought she didn't have any powers. So I'm kind of wondering what that relationship will be like. I'm sure there will definitely be some friction there, because I think she's done with the days of just lying down and being like, it's okay, it was a misunderstanding. I mean, that's what made her snap, honestly. She kept forgiving Allison over and over again, and Allison kept showing her that she was disrespectful and crappy. I mean, it took a really long time for more Allison to learn her lesson, as well as Vanya. Like, Allison to finally treat her consistently nice and see what she did wrong, and Vanya to realize, like, you don't have to cause the apocalypse, but you can tell people how you want to be treated and, set up boundaries and lines. So I think that will be a fun one to watch kind of build up. And just in general, like, what's their idea of fixing her? Because I'm assuming they can't take away the power. Right? Okay. Number 5. Dad's an alien. Yeah. They didn't do a good enough job explaining that. We just kind of see a moment, and it's implied that he's watching maybe like a wife or a lover die. She once played the violin. I guess the violin existed on other planets. And he was on some sort of other planet, and there were rocket ships leaving, as if they were all leaving the planet. Now, they don't say this really well. Like I said, we just see a glimpse, but again, when I was having some stuff spoiled for me, I learned that the dad was an alien. That's why he has this like super technology and is like a great inventor, had the monocle, all that jazz, and why he took an interest in the kids and stuff like that. But it's still, how do I put this? It still leaves a lot of things unanswered in a good way. When we saw the flashback, they made it clear that all these aliens were leaving this planet. I mean, the wife could have just died on her own, but maybe they left the planet because the wife died of some disease that was spreading and they just had to leave. So, like, that's a big one. Why did they leave? Is that important to his story and the kids at all? I was wondering, and this is just a theory. Now, they describe the kids, when the kids are conceived, they are conceived by, I think it's 43 or 48 mothers. Now, he's only able to successfully get 7 kids. But the idea is that these women were not pregnant when the day began. So when the pregnancy happened, because it was unexpected and really weird and unusual, it was just kind of assumed it was an anomaly, and that's why these kids have these powers. I'm wondering if maybe it's alien related, and they like did some crazy effect and warped babies to these women's bellies. So these kids maybe in turn are alien themselves, or at least were conceived through alien-like properties. But then more questions become unraveled. Okay, well, why did they do that? Part of me wonders if maybe this is a common thing that's happened, that when they are giving these mothers these babies and the babies to have certain abilities, maybe every time kids have abilities, the same 48 abilities happen. So they can anticipate one kid's going to have the ability to talk to the dead, so on and so forth. Like, I know you could say that their dad was pushing people like Klaus and implying their powers went even further than they could imagine just because he saw the potential there. But you could also say that maybe he's seen this before. Maybe they've gone to other planets and other babies have been born and other children have produced heightened, like taken their powers to the next level. So he knows for a fact that people like Klaus can do even more with their powers than they are aware of. Then, at the same note, it makes you wonder if when he came upon Vanya's ability, maybe, like, how did he know the apocalypse was going to happen? Maybe because of these experiments and the babies and everything, whoever has Vanya's ability has repeatedly caused the apocalypse on multiple planets. Maybe that's why they were leaving the first time. The experiment of the babies went horribly wrong and everyone had to leave because that Vanya on that planet, I'm not saying the person's name was Vanya, they just had that ability, was causing the apocalypse again. It's just something that never gets successfully controlled. And that's why as soon as he saw it was not going to be happening again, he was like, I've seen the effects, we've got to shut this thing down. Maybe it's more than just having a suspect feeling that she was out of control and crazy. I mean, the fact that Ben could make alien creatures come out of his stomach and kill people, and that wasn't seen as chaotic or uncontrollable, but Vanya's power was, is really interesting to me. So that's kind of like a theory I have of why he chose Vanya's ability to suppress over his peers. Anyways, in addition to that, I just want to make sure I go over my notes. I'm just looking at my notes, sorry. Was he chosen or did he? Oh, my question was, why did he take a personal interest in these children and the apocalypse itself? And this is an important one. Was he chosen by his fellow alien peers to do this? Or, like, was it just in him? Like, he'd seen his planet and maybe possibly his love die before from this, so he wanted to kind of end the cycle. That's him doing his part. He knew it was going to happen anyways. He wanted to be there to try to prevent it. So it's like a lot to think about in that regard. And I think some of it's answered at the idea of, like, if these babies are sent from, like, alien intervention in some way, you could see how he maybe has certain things preconceived and is ready for it. But it still doesn't answer why he himself got involved. just a little food for thought. Again, I have a Twitter and email in the description below. I for sure want to hear your theories. Because a lot of these theories are just theories. Like, I have no idea. I'm just putting them out there. If I had some sort of answer, I would do my best to give it. Okay, but number 6, some of the side characters. Now, Cha-Cha, from what we could see, she died. I don't think she died. She was too great of a character. It'd be sad to see her go. But Hazel, we saw that he left with his girl, the waitress. Now, I talked about before how at the commission with number 5, we learned that some of the most insignificant people, their death or absence or somehow messing with them, can affect history on a grand scope. And it's important that these things happen. Maybe by Hazel, which he hasn't done in other timelines, because remember, he's from the, the commission and the future or whatever. He's used to bouncing around different timelines and not affecting it. Maybe this one time, by him removing the waitress from her timeline and just choosing to kind of live his life willy-nilly, is the missing factor that could change the apocalypse from happening. Maybe by the waitress not being at her donut stand and not being the one to be prompt and deliver the donuts to future agents that will come to assassinate child number 5 in 2019 is the thing that allows 2019's version of number 5 to then go through and successfully stop Vanya from causing the apocalypse and all that jazz. I mean, I don't know, the possibilities are endless, but I kind of love the idea of this character who's just a fun element, a little peek into a bigger corporation. I just like to think that instead of a storyline being something that ends with, oh, he's just this cute character we fell in love with and he found love and that's so good for him that he was kind of similar to the superhero kids where he decided he didn't want to live that life anymore, being told what to do, and like he wanted to decide his own destiny. Wouldn't it be cool if he was like the most important cog in this machine? They always describe them as that, but what if he's the missing element out of number 5's equation that number 5 doesn't even know about? You know what I'm saying? Because I'm assuming when number 5 worked at the commission temporarily and solved a big problem, he had access to a bunch of people's information, but I'm sure he doesn't have access to Hazel's information because Hazel might not be in the realm of fucking up history when he's technically not even supposed to exist. It's like he exists across so many different timelines and parts of history that in a way, and he's not supposed to affect anything, so therefore he doesn't exist. He has no way of changing the timeline. But now, by him living his own life and being separate from the commission, maybe he's now officially a person that has an effect on the world. I just love that idea of it all coming round circle to fucking Hazel. And last but not least, theory number 7. Now, I love the idea of the crew, as in the squad, all 7 children coming together and working as a team. I'm hoping that, I'm assuming the commission isn't dead. Like, it's too big of a corporation that even if they kill one agent, it's like what she said, you can kill me, but there's going to be someone else that takes my place. It's a never-ending thing. There's no way to stop us. And even though they've hurt the commission a little bit with their time-traveling abilities, I'm sure they'll build another one. Like, do you see what I'm saying? They're kind of in a weird, timeless, eternal place. And their goal is not going to be thwarted by one explosion and one death of a worker there. So I'm assuming they're going to have a personal problem with number 5, but most importantly, people who are trying to stop a really massive, important time in existence. I mean, goodness knows Dot's going to be all over that. So I'm wondering, it would be really fun to see the crew as a whole fight the commission. And that's basically my number 7 theory, that instead of number 5 taking on just random goons or even people that don't even know they're helping out the commission and the timeline, but now that everyone's aware of what's happening, they know about this corporation, all that jazz, they all work together and we get another cool scene. Like, the Umbrella Academy for sure had a lot of times when they were exhibiting their powers, which I love. Like, don't tell me you have superpowers and then chintz out on the effects and actually using it. Like, I want them to go even... I think they did a really great job in season 1, but I want them to do it even more in season 2. Like, I want our girl Allison to use her ability more, even Luther, so on and so forth. But I think that one of the best iconic scenes that can be easily rewatched like a million times on YouTube is the scene when they're all in the bank and they're exhibiting their powers and how they all work together and how they're all useful in their own unique way. Wouldn't it be cool as adults to see them working together? Maybe, like I said before, they find a way to have their powers benefit each other rather than being seen separately against the commission. So we have the commission there fighting them with their technological advances and inventions, and then henchmen that can be easily disposable but are incredibly skilled and totally okay with murder, fighting these kids that have evolved. And this is where like a beautiful metaphor can kind of come together. They started as children being learning that all of their powers were separate, and even when they fought, it was very separate. It's like each one took their time and did the one thing. Wouldn't it be cool if Luther was able to start creating vibrations with his strength, and Vanya was able to then amplify it, which then disoriented people enough for Allison to sneak up on people and spread rumors, and before they could even, get control of themselves, Ben releases the form of his monster, and he's only able to do that because Klaus brings him into existence. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, there's like a never-ending pool of creative fighting ideas, and I think it would be really fun. Normally, I don't like when plot lines lead to like a dumb, stupid, anonymous corporation, but I think something between the commission, and I hope they bring back that lady who played, I can't think of her name, I don't have IMDb in front of me, but awesome. I loved her with the bleach platinum blonde hair. I loved the way she carried herself. If it was her, like a bunch of maybe new goons we come to love, and the kids fighting and kind of have a big recreation of that power heist scene, but in a different way. I think that would be like people's new favorite scene. Anyway, those are my predictions and theories, and I would love to know if you have anything you would like to add to this conversation. Maybe you have your own personal answers. Feel free to join the conversation via email or Twitter. You can go follow it. It's in the link in the description below. And honestly, guys, subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to. Give it a 5-star review. Tell a friend. I fucking love talking to you guys in the most platonic way possible. I will see you in the next episode. Bye!